Health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to the Accelerated Health TV and Radio Show. I'm your host, Sara Banta. I'm a wife, a busy mom of three, and the founder of the cutting edge and award-winning supplement brand Accelerated Health Products. This podcast is more than just a source of information. It's a community for you and those looking to optimize their health. I release new episodes live every Monday and Tuesday and a bonus one on Thursday. So remember to subscribe and add to your playlist so you never miss a show. And join my free health group coaching on Telegram. There's no downside. I teach you on a daily basis. I answer your questions. It's an extension of these podcasts where you learn and you might go, oh, I have another question about that. So there's no downside. And you have these amazing people to also give you their feedback and their experience on my protocols. The details can be found on my website, sarabantahealth.com. My goal is to reach everyone who needs me with my message of healing. So if you could help me with that goal, share this podcast with a few of your friends, and together we can empower each other on our journey to optimal health. I pride myself at Accelerated Health Products to only carry the best of the best. And when I can't find the best of the best, I create it with Accelerated Health Products. But if there's something out there that I can improve on, I'll carry that brand. Why not, right? And that's what we're talking about today. Some of my new favorite supplements. And we have Jessica Kane Berman, and she's the Chief Marketing Officer of BodyBio, some new supplements that I carry by the company. And this is a third-generation supplement manufacturer started by her grandfather. She's a mom of three young kids like me who had three and who now has three adult kids. They start talking back to you. Her grandfather, Ed Kane, was an inventor, health explorer, and earlier biohacker. He went looking for answers for his own health issues in the 1980s and got deep into the science about cell membrane medicine. Welcome, Jess. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm super excited because you dive into cell health, and we are only as healthy as ourselves. But I want to talk about your story because you and I both had our own issues. And that's kind of what drove us to get really into this. I never thought I'd be into the health industry, and my gut said, no, you're going into the health industry and I'm going to take your health down so that you learn things and can share with other people. So why don't you tell everybody your story, how you became so passionate? I know it's a family business, but you only you have your own issues, or did, that drove your passion as well.
I think to some extent, like, we always have our own issues, right? It just, those issues are going to help shape the direction of your life if you allow them to, right? And in a positive way. And for me, that definitely happened during various different periods of my life. So my first health issue started, as many do, with trauma. Death of my father when I was 18 years old, and my gut health just went, nope, this is our weak point. This is where we're going to hold our emotions. This is the weakness. And so for me, it was then probably about a 4 to 5 year journey of learning that the allopathic community was not giving me the answers that I sought, that it was not helping my health, and that I needed to explore deeper. I was very fortunate that about 3 years into that journey, I sat down with my grandfather, and we were eating tacos in San Diego. And he said to me, I said, I can't eat this. I won't be able to digest it. I'll have acid reflux for hours. And he handed me a betaine hydrochloride. And he said, take this. Let's take some digestive enzymes. Of course, he had it all in his bag. Mm-hmm. And in a little bit, you're going to take this. And I was able to eat. I was able to eat anything I wanted. And I was like, wait a minute. Why am I on all these drugs and these things that are not actually making me any better when there's other solutions? And he was the type of person that when it came to his family, he would kind of step back and wait. Like, we always ate organic. We were eating healthy foods growing up. we were always going out to Amish markets and things like that. But it wasn't, when you're in your kind of early 20s and in college, you're not listening to what your grandparents are saying in terms of your health. And so it wasn't until I really had that time to spend with him that I wanted to learn more about what they were doing. And I started to learn more about what he and his second wife, Dr. Patricia Kane, were doing. And really started just to get into health and wellness. I had always been interested in it. I studied biomedical or biochemical engineering at school. And so it was something that I was passionate about. I just knew that my path was not going to be going to medical school. And so I kind of took a little bit of a detour, but in that detour and doing something much more creative, we were living in London. My life was very different. I was always interested in health and wellness and doing things from an alternative lens, seeking solutions that weren't just going to the NHS and asking them, hey, why am I getting these headaches? Or, hey, what's going on with my fertility? I was then, when I was about 30 years old, my husband and I started to think about having children. And I was told, you have polycystic ovaries and you're not going to be able to get pregnant. Here's metformin, here's Clomid. You're going to be diabetic in a few years. And I called my grandfather again and just said, hey, what do I do? And he helped me to rectify it so quickly. I mean, I was pregnant within 3 months with our oldest son. So, I think that it's that pattern of repeatedly having these kind of, I would say, smaller issues. These were definitely not major chronic health issues. Potentially, if I had not approached them from the direction that I did, they may have turned into larger problems. But for me, I was able to get the education, get the resources, talk to the right doctors, talk to my grandparents at the exact time that I needed to. And it really just occurred to me that people are lost in this space. And there's so much going on now with health and wellness. When my grandparents started the company back in the 1990s, it was a tiny group of people and just a few supplement manufacturers. And now it is such an incredibly large industry. And so helping people to see through the weeds, I think, is now such an important part of what we do and what people like you do.
Yeah, you and I are very similar. I was diagnosed with PCOS. I put on Clomid. I think I'm older than you. I'm 48. They did not connect the dots with blood sugar and metformin even back then. So they were just putting me on Clomid. I said, well, what's the reason for PCOS? No answer. And when I went to the doctors, the GI doctors for my gut issues, tubes down me, up me, around me. Oh, you've got IBS, go take some Metamucil.
Yeah.
And obviously that didn't do me any good. And that's what drove my passion for this. Fast forward to my son's leukemia at the age of 9. And he's a healthy, almost 22-year-old college kid, not a kid anymore. Yeah. And each one of my kids and my husband and me have all had different little issues, whether it's hormonal, gut, just wanting to optimize, right? They're athletes too, wanting to optimize. So we've gotten rid of the big stuff. Let's just optimize, anti-age in this world that's so toxic. And, in the last 4 years, I have to be careful with what we talk about here. There's just this compounding of issues that say, okay, the equation's changed now. More histamines. And we mentioned Terry Cochran. I'm a big believer in her dietary protocol, and you've just got to navigate a little bit more to figure out your symptoms, what the root causes. But it all comes back to cellular health.
It does.
We are as healthy as our cells. When our cells die, we die. And what people don't realize is cancer cells are the weak cells in our body, but if our body's not strong enough to fight them, that's when they take over, or any disease cells. And you've got dietary toxins, you've got more radiation, you've got more heavy metals, we have the spike protein, and then people have the medications that really screw everything up.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the importance of cellular health, the cell membrane, how that works, what the toxicity is doing to our cells, and then what we can do about it.
So there's nothing more root than a cell. So when we talk about root cause solutions or root cause wellness, obviously, I think a lot of people are taking individual nutrients and they're approaching it from, okay, let's take CoQ10 or PQQ or something, NMN or urolithin A. These are all individual kind of levers that you can pull, but it's not going to change the whole picture of your cellular and mitochondrial health. And so what happens when we are assaulted by the toxic soup that we live in, not to be fear mongering or anything, but the reality of the world is that we are all exposed to hundreds of thousands of different chemicals. They're in the air, they're in our soil, they're in our food, they're in the processed foods that we are consuming. And we are exposed to heavy metals. So you have heavy metals, chemicals, biotoxins, environmental toxins like mold. And the reason that we have the rates of disease and childhood illnesses and all of these things is we are now experiencing quite severe mitochondrial dysfunction on very many levels. And so what we really looked at and what my grandparents' research brought them to in the early 90s was there is a role that is critically important from the cell membrane. This is this wall, essentially, that protects what's outside the extracellular matrix versus what's inside. And all the organelles within our cells also have membranes. And so what happens with the toxic sludge that we live in is that toxicity, the toxins should live in the extracellular matrix. What's happening is they're bombarding that wall and they're breaking through and they're getting into our cells, they're getting into our mitochondria, and they are altering our epigenetics. They are changing the genetic expression that we are born with. Those genes that we are born with are a blueprint. They're a DNA blueprint. They're an architectural drawing. We know this from the work of researchers like Dr. Bruce Lipton, but it's the actual membrane that is responsible for the communication between the cells. And so what happens when these toxins alter our membrane is it changes all these really important sites within the membrane, the receptor sites, the ion channels, these peptides, all of these things start to alter. And we see it as a breakdown in our health. So while we can do so many different protocols and detox protocols and different things for our health, if we are not maintaining the integrity of our cell membrane and our organelle membranes, these things are still going to be happening to us.
So when my son was first diagnosed with leukemia, we did a live blood cell test and his cells were all clumped together.
Yeah.
And they literally looked like donuts because they had no nutritional value inside the cell.
And those are heavy metals.
Right. So we put him through a supplement protocol, no drugs, no chemo, no nothing.
Wow.
Within a year, his cancer was gone. And the cells were nice and dark and plump and looked nutritionally healthy. It was amazing. And it just showed that if the cells are nice and stuck or not nice and stuck together, how can anything get in? Right. And you and I both suffered from insulin resistance with our PCOS. Now, a lot of people have insulin resistance and they say I don't understand. I'm not eating a high sugar diet. Well, if the cells are full of toxins, right? The cells are full and the glucose tries to get into the cell and the insulin's knocking at the door. The cell says, no, I'm overstuffed with toxins. I don't have room. So all of these toxins and the other stuff that we're dealing with is making all of these disease factors worse away from just sugar. Right. So it's, yes, you shouldn't be eating too much sugar, but that is not the only thing. And I love that the name of the cell membrane is cell membrane because it is the brain of the cell, right? It knows what to let in and what to let out. We got to get the nutrients in and we got to get the toxins out. So let's talk about PC. And the I hate this word because it's so hard for me to say. Phosphatidylcholine. Why can't they just call it PC, right? But the cell membrane also has an iodo-lipid value. What does that mean? Lipid, fat, iodo, iodine. And everyone who's listened to me knows I talk about the importance of iodine. It's important for the ATP production inside the cell, for the membrane, because of that iodolipid value, and then also to cleanse the blood outside the cell. So this is why I love, because the iodine really works with the PC for that health of the cell membrane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's it's a very powerful combination. I think minerals in general play such a huge part, and that mineral balancing plays a huge part in cell health, in cellular membrane integrity. So the bilipid layer that surrounds our cells, specifically 50% of the outer layer is phosphatidylcholine. And then you have ancillary smaller phospholipids like phosphatidylserine, which is more popular in the market because of its assistance, short-term assistance with memory, recall, brain function, et cetera. But the reality is what you want is a blend of all of those phospholipids that work on the inner and the outer layer. Also, organelles tend to have different ratios. So while phosphatidylcholine may be the most important phospholipid for our outer cell membrane, the inner, for instance, mitochondrial membrane has different ratios of phosphatidyl, inositol, ethanolamine, all of these. It's a choline head with fatty acid tails. So this is where other healthy fats like essential fatty acids come into play that are critically important as well. And we can touch on our products for essential fatty acids when we get to that, because they're very specific and treated very carefully. I think what's most important that people understand is that it's difficult to get these things from our foods now. And so there is a need, because we are under a greater assault from these silent toxins, right? Like we're not aware. It's not a sugar that you can taste. It's in the lawns that you're walking on. It's in the air that you're breathing. And so what I always recommend to people is, by supplementing with these phospholipids, we are ensuring that cellular resilience and integrity of both the cell and the organelle membranes. And so that is one of the important steps in just living a healthy life on a daily basis now. Because even if you eat all the right foods and you are eating a lot of meat and you are consuming a lot of eggs, the conversion, of course, these are biological substrates. Our body is making these all the time, but we're not making enough to truly keep our cells healthy. And you see this a lot with things like live blood analysis. You see it a lot with people who do very in-depth blood testing to look at how their health is being affected and how these toxins are affecting their health. There's this incredible blood test out of Germany that looks at your mitochondrial function and your DNA adducts. So what toxins are sitting, altering our epigenetics within our cells? And you can see very clearly BPA, glyphosate, all the different molds. So many, PFAS, all the forever chemicals. And you can see your limits. And what I have seen in people's tests considerably is, on day one, we have very high limits. We have very high values of heavy metals, of all of these toxins. And you'll do a 6 months to a year of taking PC, and all of those get to tolerable. Mm-hmm. And it's just incredible to see that something so simple can help people to detox in a healthy, nutritious way that's also supporting their cells.
I always say that detox was a fad 20 years ago. Now it's essential, right? Mm-hmm. We all have to be focused on that detox. My 20-year-old daughter, college student at USC, she rows for the rowing team. Nice. She comes home from college and we get her scanned, and her heavy metals are through the roof. Mm. Now, mind you, she tries to eat as well as I've taught her, organic. She's in college. It makes it a little more difficult. And we're sitting there going, where are these heavy metals coming from? Well, she rows in the port of Los Angeles, which is very toxic. So all of these heavy metals, it's not from the food necessarily. It's from the air she's breathing. And so we're going through this detox summer. Not really fun for her. But anyways, this is one part of it, is the PC. And for me, I had the spike protein exposure a couple months ago. My vision was bad. I actually pinned it down to the varicella virus that was inflaming my optic nerve. And I tested the PC, not just on my overall body and health, but literally for my eye health. And it lit up the test. And there's something about this that my body is just craving to the point where I actually crave the taste of it. You know, when you know, when your body wants something where the taste is neutral and it's like, oh my gosh, I want this more than candy because my body's saying, I love this, give me more. And my vision is perfect now. I don't wear glasses. I don't need them. It was more of a viral activity inflaming the optic nerve. And now that is gone. It's dormant. Nothing's there. And I take this. It's part of my detox protocol with all of my cleanses that I have on my my website. But I want to talk about what to look for in a supplement. Why is this different than the other PCs out there? A lot of PCs, you know, soy less than, right? That's what a lot of people take. Yeah. And it's much cheaper. So I always say you get what you pay for.
You do.
Right? So let's get into what is different about this versus the others on the market.
Yeah. So when my grandparents first started working with doing research and they were educating doctors, they were actually doing blood tests in the 90s. They would educate the doctors on what was going on with people's phospholipid levels, essential fatty acid status. And they were using IV, the doctors, the MDs and the DOs were using the IV drugs. So phosphatidylcholine is a drug that is manufactured, as is sodium phenylbutyrate, glutathione in a drug form. They were using them as IV drips. And my grandfather looked at it and said, there's a way to come up with an oral version of this. And so he developed the oral because it's so much more accessible. But in developing the oral, he worked for 2 to 3 years, specifically with our formulator, who's still with the business and who's still manufacturing. He's actually in our Butyrate facility today. So they worked together to figure out how can we isolate the various different phospholipids, extract them, protect them, and package this in a liposomal form. So you need, in order to make a liposome, you need phospholipids, right? You can't have a liposome out of MCT or anything like that. So firstly, when you're looking at liposomal supplements, approach with a weary eye. That is something that I always recommend to people. As you know, as somebody who works in the supplement industry and who has your own line of supplements, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of supplement manufacturers now. And what you're looking for when you partner with a co-manufacturer is one that you trust, that is making things of integrity, that is looking at the raw material sources, that is not cutting corners, that is certified in all the ways that you want them to be certified so that their machines are going through strict quality control and quality assurance measures. For us, that's both us. So we both manufacture and we market, which makes us very unique in the supplement space. I would say there's probably a handful of companies like us. Most are very large conglomerates that are making supplements. And so we get to see from start to finish every single thing that goes into our products. And that's why it's not going to be the cheapest on the market. You can get phospholipids from taking soy lecithin. The problem is that they're going to break down in digestion into choline and triglycerides. It's not actually going to supply the cells with phospholipids. They're just going to get broken down. And so my grandfather figured out a way to isolate those phospholipids so that when we take them, they're in a liposomal form. They're going to make it through the gastrointestinal wall for cellular delivery through the bloodstream. And that's where it differs. So if you go on Amazon and you Google and you see Thorne, Designs for Health, Doublewood, PC, it's lecithin packed in oil. It's not going to do anything.
Those are reputable companies, right? That you just mentioned.
They are.
We're not even talking about the other ones. And just a couple stories on the quality of what you're talking about, the quality of supplements. We were manufacturing one of our supplements that have some mushrooms in it. And the stringent levels that were applied a couple years ago to allow mold and bacteria in had grown because of COVID, because of costs, because of inflation. And a lot of companies are allowing more mold, more bacteria in their supplements. So we had to go searching for a new source for those specific ingredients. And I actually just got a text from my manufacturer this morning. We're coming out with an amazing liver pill, accelerated liver care. And he said, I have to find a new source for this ingredient because I looked at the flow chart. No one looks at the flow chart.
Yeah.
And that's where is the organic, amazing ingredient going in its process to get into that pill?
Yep.
And there was a toxic element to it that was causing toxicity for that ingredient.
Yep.
No one looks at this stuff.
No. And you know what? They slap a label on it. They call it organic. They put it on Amazon and people purchase it.
Right.
And it's crazy. This is the same thing happening with liposomal supplements. Anyone can say that their product's liposomal. Do you know what they're mixing it with? Soy lecithin. Because every other manufacturer, there's a handful of manufacturers that are doing it well. Live On Labs, they create liposomes. I like their liposomes. Quicksilver, different form of liposomes than ours, but are creating liposomes. The other companies, there's another company called Foscol. They're creating liposomes. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to call out the other companies, but
Right.
that liposomal supplement that you're buying from everyone is not liposomal.
Right. It's really important because you could be taking something that is backfiring, making your symptoms worse, or creating another issue.
Or a waste.
Right.
Glutathione, you need it to be liposomal for it to work. So why waste your money on expensive GSH that's not even going to be utilized in the body?
Exactly. Well, it's coming from soy.
Mhm.
And everybody is afraid of soy.
Sure.
I actually talk about the fact that you want to stay away from soy. It's estrogenic. There are it's very difficult to find soy that is not GMO or has exposure to glyphosate. So what is different?
So what makes our product really unique is that we remove the soy proteins. That's the important part to think about. You're removing the protein. The protein is the source in the soy that carries the allergenic or estrogenic part to the soy. And so it's derived from soy, but there's no soy proteins left in the product. And we test every batch to ensure that. The other thing that's really important to note here is that there's two forms of lecithin that people use to derive phospholipids. There's soy and there's sunflower. The reason we don't use sunflower is very specific. It's because there's 60% less phosphatidylcholine in sunflower. And so if you derive a product from sunflower and you derive it in the right way, let's say you are using it in the right way, you're going to get more phosphatidylserine than phosphatidylcholine. And remember, PC is what you want for that outer membrane. And so that layer of protection that you need on the outer membrane comes from soy protein. It mimics human body's biological substrates closer than any other substance on the planet. You can also use eggs, and there are people using eggs, but most of the egg PC is going to be rancid. When you smell it, you'll smell that it smells horrible. And it's high levels of sphingomyelin. That's another phospholipid, and you want to make sure that that ratio is very carefully treated. When babies are born, they have very high levels of PC and very low levels of sphingomyelin. People with cardiovascular disease in their 70s have very high levels of sphingomyelin, very low levels of PC. So you don't want, I love to eat eggs. I think eggs are a beautiful source of protein and a source of phospholipids, a source of great fats for our bodies, but you don't want to solely be getting your source of phospholipids from eggs.
Right. Well, this is the liquid form.
Yes.
I know it comes in capsules as well.
Yes.
What is the dosage that you recommend, and what will people notice? Obviously, it's good for detox and it's good for cellular health, but what are people going to feel?
So let's talk about people who are chronically ill, very inflamed, in very specific health states versus people who are conscious, taking care of their health, may not be having huge issues. You're going to feel very different. For the people who are in a chronically ill state, they need to start very slow. They need to take a very low dose. You can even take the liquid and put it on your wrist. Remember, your skin is our largest organ. You can get to those cells through your wrist. So they may want to start that way, even for a few weeks to a month, build up their dose from there. The dosing for people who are healthy, they can start with that half a teaspoon a day, start from there and build up your dose. So let's talk about increased therapeutic doses. There's maintenance doses and there's therapeutic doses. When you are going through a period of time where you want to either be dealing with somebody who's chronically ill, or you want to be doing some lipid replacement therapy for optimized health, you're going to want to increase to 2 tablespoons a day. You're going to do that for a period of probably 2 to 3 months if you're not sick, up to 6 months if you are sick, and then you're going to taper back down to a maintenance dose that feels good for you. My maintenance dose that I like is about a teaspoon to a tablespoon a day. I've been exposed to mold in my home. I had an issue with a tick that I was bitten by a few months ago. So I've increased my dose to keep it at that 1 tablespoon, sometimes 2 tablespoons a day. For my children, I'm doing a teaspoon a day because of the mold that was in our home. But typically I would just kind of put a couple drops. They like it. They ask for more. So
Yeah.
it's an essential nutrient. So I'm happy to give them more, but understanding that it's an expensive product. You can use it at that maintenance dose, the lower dose that's on the bottle, but a therapeutic dose when you want to really get those lipids in and help that detoxification process, particularly for someone like your daughter over the summer, I would do the 1 tablespoon a day.
And what's so great when you're trying to get your kids to do supplements, young kids, it's okay, how does it taste? What's the texture? They're very specific. And this is something that you can put in their smoothie or in their food and make it disappear. Or the other thing is children like to take ownership of their health.
Yeah.
So when they realize that they're doing something actively to take care of themselves, they'll take to it. So it's one of those supplements that's actually really easy to incorporate with a child. You know, I have protocols for children. Some things are not so easy. You know, like the Acceleradine Iodine. I'm not going to lie, it is hard to get a child to take it because it has a very strong taste. Now you can plug your nose and put it in your mouth like the doctor tells you to do, but the PC is something that is very easy to incorporate in your children's diet. And guys, do it. Our children are being threatened by so many more toxins than we were. 70% of their diet is processed food. That is not real food.
Yeah.
That is not what we were exposed to 30 years ago. We were eating maybe the same amount of carbs and sugar, but it was real carbs and sugar. And today it's not. So it's more important than ever. So Jess, I want to switch to butyrate. People talk about the ketogenic diet. They talk about BHB. That's a different, well, we can talk about the similarities and differences, but also gut health. You and I both have suffered from major gut health, digestive issues. I feel like I was way ahead of everybody else on the leaky gut and gut issues because I would sit at a restaurant bloated and uncomfortable and all of my friends were still fine. Whereas nowadays, I would say most people have some sort of gut issues. And there's that leaky gut. There's the mucus layer that is compromised. You know, you've got people taking probiotics that could be actually backfiring. So let's talk about butyrate and how it relates to probiotics, prebiotics, and now we've got the postbiotics.
I like to say it this way. If you think about a plant, the prebiotics are the sun and water. That's the food for the plant. The actual plant is your probiotic. The byproduct of the plant, the fruits, vegetables, and flowers, that's postbiotics. That's what butyrate is. It's very simple. And what happens in our bodies is we are living in such a state of gut dysbiosis that many people are not aware of, but that's driving their bloating, their irregularity, so many of their health issues. And we're not producing enough of those byproducts, right? So we're not feeding our body the right foods, and we're not getting enough resistant starches and dietary fibers. And then we're lacking the keystone strains that have been wiped out by antibiotic use or pesticides or so many different things that we're exposed to. And so our guts are just in this state of kind of disarray. And butyrate as a postbiotic supplement really comes in to help decrease the inflammation, create a better home environment so that we can start to get back those keystone strains of bacteria, and we can start to think about the foods that we're feeding our gut so that we can prevent this leaky gut SIBO state that so many people end up in. Our gut houses our immune system. And so when we don't take care of it, the rest of our body fails us as well. And so it's a really important part of the BodyBio protocol, what's really fascinating about butyrate as a postbiotic is it also works at the cellular level. It plays a very important role in our cells as something called a chemical chaperone. It helps to break down these toxins that embed themselves in our cells. And so it's part of the BodyBio world for that reason. But what's really interesting is because of the rise of gut health issues, because in the 1990s, it was so different than it is even today, this has become one of our, if not our most popular product.
Yes. And now in the world of the spike protein, histamines have become much more rampant with people that have not even had histamine issues or allergies ever in their life. And I'm one of those people where I'm seeing a histamine issue and I'm having to take supplements. I take the HistaHarmony for that, but also butyrate helps stabilize and moderate the histamine response, correct?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So it degranulates mast cells. And so it's really it's a huge help there. It's not something that you will necessarily feel right away, but over time of taking butyrate, it's absolutely going to help with those histamine issues.
And it helps with the metabolic health. It helps with insulin resistance. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. So butyrate is a natural GLP-1 agonist. So it's naturally going to increase GLP-1 production in the gut.
You mean you don't have to go out and get $1,000 shot? Is that what you're telling me?
You know, it's another Band-Aid, right? It's another Band-Aid for the larger problem. And so butyrate is going to look at the larger problems and get more into what's going on at the root and how do we fix it from the root. Let's not just peck a Band-Aid on it. And so butyrate is going to help increase GLP-1. It helps to regulate blood sugar. So when taken after a meal, if I cheat, if I eat a little something after a meal, I always take butyrate. I often take butyrate with me when I eat in restaurants because it helps to break down the very long chain fats that happen when you're exposed to seed oils, rancid seed oils. And so butyrate is just this awesome metabolic health supplement that also works for the gut. And so it sounds a little bit like snake oil because it sounds like something that does so much for so many of us. But the problem is this, again, is a biological substrate that's made in the body when the body has the right environment and the right foods to do it. We're just not providing our body with that. And so if you want to increase your butyrate production naturally, you can work on doing the type of gut health tests that I'm sure you and I do very frequently. Take a look at what keystone strains that you're missing, supplement potentially with those specific strains of probiotics. Don't just supplement with a general probiotic. And then eat resistant starches such as plantains, green bananas, which I find very difficult to actually eat. Like when I try to make my kids eat a very green banana, they're like, you know, your mouth gets stuck. But there are ways that you can incorporate them into smoothies and things. Cooled and cooked rice, cooled and cooked potatoes are also sources of resistant starch. But in general, not many of us are eating enough fiber, and we should increase our fiber intake to increase the natural butyrate production. For me, it's just easier to take a butyrate supplement.
So you talk about the foods to get your butyrate from, and we're talking about the fact that most people eat only 30% of their diet from real food. Are they really going to use that 30% with cold potatoes? So that's the problem, is our diet is not giving us what we need. And that's where supplementation is needed in our soils. I mean, it goes for the nutrients that we're trying to get. That's why supplementation is needed for just nutrients, is because our soils are so depleted. We're not getting what we used to get.
Exactly.
What I like to use is the Megaspore Biotic, which goes down in there and it wakes up and gives you what you need to give that diversity down there. And the Mega Pre feeds that. And then you've got the Postbiotic from the butyrate. And so I've got here the sodium butyrate and the CalMag. And so two different options. Can you tell us the difference? Why would we choose one or the other? And you mentioned when you take it, do you actually take it with a meal, or can you take it fasted? Is there a benefit to that? Or
I like to take it after you're going to get the most benefits. You can take it fasted, but if you're somebody who leans towards some upper GI issues and stomach issues, you can also potentially get a little acid reflux from it. Butyrate is very acidic. And so we use the minerals to buffer the acidity. And so that CalMag or the sodium are used to actually buffer the acidity of the actual butyrate. And so it really does not matter which one you take. We created originally 3 different versions. There was another version. But remember, BodyBio started as a professional supplement brand and we only sold to doctors. So that was what the doctors had requested at that time. And then the doctor was able to pick which one they wanted the patient on depending on their health. The form that is produced naturally in the body is sodium. So that's the form we tell people typically to start with. If you are concerned with sodium hypertension, you can do CalMag. The other thing to consider is when you have ample levels of sodium butyrate in general, you will make more BHB, beta hydroxybutyrate, from the liver. And so it will help in the downstream metabolites to actually create more BHB in the body.
Okay, so we've got the PC and the butyrate. And this is another one of my favorite supplements is the vitamin B, because a lot of Bs out there are actually toxic to your body. So you're actually hurting your body by paying for a supplement that you're taking, thinking you're doing something good. You might have headaches, you might have anxiety. Can you talk about why your B supplement is different?
It's really powerful. It's very high potency. We actually originally made a low potency and a high potency because we had so many children, people on the spectrum or rare childhood disorders that needed a B as well. We've discontinued that one because there's so many other Bs that have come into the market. What's unique about our B is again, that raw material choices, right? We're looking individually at every single ingredient and making sure it is the one that is going to be metabolized in the body, the one that's actually going to be able to be utilized. We're not cutting corners to pick a cheaper one or pick one from another country. We're very specifically choosing these Bs that we know are going to work in the body. So it is very strong. It's something that, for me, actually, what I find really interesting about the B is if I'm going through periods of stress, we've got 3 kids. When they were all first born, it was 3 kids under the age of 4. We're building a brand. My husband's the CEO of our company, so we work together. It's a family business. When I have a lot going on and my adrenals are quite taxed, I can't take a B. It's too stimulating for me. And so I will lay off of our B at that point. Like I can tell intuitively if I just go to grab it and I'm like, I'm not going to do it. It's my own way of kind of muscle testing things in my own body. It's potent and it works very, very well. When your adrenals are not as kind of taxed, the state that I would say I'm in right now, I'm working on getting out of it, but my central nervous system, I just need to kind of bring things down. It really helps to balance those Bs. And what you don't want to do is take single Bs for very long periods of time because it throws the other levels of Bs off. And so that's why I think a B complex is so important. And that for like long-term supplementation is important, but read your body as well. I think that's another thing that people really need to do, particularly the type of people that you're probably speaking to. They're learning that intuitive balance of their body and where they are. And so lean in on that as well when it comes to something like a vitamin B that can be quite stimulating.
You bring up a point where most Americans out there are so loaded with toxins and they're eating the standard American diet. They have no intuition to their body. They're numb, right? They don't understand the feeling of what a Diet Coke and French fries are really doing to their body until they eliminate all that. They clean things out and then they have that French fries again and they feel horrible. It's the same with supplements. And I actually this year just went through a whole period of, okay, Sara, stop everything for a minute. Take just what you feel your body is asking for. And I actually started feeling better. And it's amazing how your body's going to tell you a lot more than the doctor's going to tell you. Get in tune with your body and you won't need to go run to the doctor and figure out why you're having headaches or GI issues. But what I love about these supplements is they're making you more resilient. And Jess, I just went on a week trip and normally travel wrecks me because I'm not eating my normal food. I'm not doing my normal workouts. I'm out of my normal routine. And I come home super inflamed, bloated, headache, all of that. And it takes me a week to get back into it. This last time, I had fixed my gut so that it's super resilient, no inflammation. I did not skip a beat when I came home the next day. It was amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, let's go travel. Where do we want to go now? Because
good feeling.
I have this freedom And there are other gut supplements that, HCL. I love the HCL guard that I use, and that has been a game changer. But to strengthen the gut lining so that when you eat off of and you get off of your track, that you're okay, it's okay to cheat and you're not going to fall off the rails and die, right? There's a way to use these supplements to strengthen that lining in the gut, at the cellular level. Your cells start to trust you and your body starts to trust you. There's this inner communication. And you mentioned at the very beginning that you were super stressed, and that is what wrecked your gut. Stress doesn't have any calories, guys, but stress will kill your health and it will kill your gut, right? And there's this feedback loop between the gut and the brain. If your gut isn't right, you're going to become more stressed on top of the stress of raising 3 kids and having a business and all of those issues.
This is exactly what just happened to me the last few months.
Right.
So I got bit by a tick. I opted to do both herbal, and I knew, I saved the tick. I sent it in. This was confirmed. I knew it had Lyme. And I've had Lyme in the past. And so I opted to do doxycycline because I caught it quite quickly. I did an herbal course afterwards, but it wrecked my gut. And then my stress levels were just going through the roof. And it was a combination of all. Fortunately, last week I went and did some body work and lymphatic work and fascia release and energy work. And that's really kind of brought me back to a place where I'm feeling like I'm getting back to normal. I use, obviously, BodyBio Calm a lot for times like this as well. And I knew it comes from that gut, right? It's always like that was the kickoff. And then the stress really started to mount on top. It's almost like when my gut's in a better place, I'm able to be more resilient. Yeah. And so I think it's really important. We did not touch on the importance of phosphatidylcholine in the gut. So if you think about that whole lymphatic system and the gut mucosa and the lining of our gut, 80% of it is made by phosphatidylcholine.
Oh my
and so when we take PC, we are also working on our GI resilience, which is so awesome because there are cells everywhere in our body. And so they're helping with all the different cells, whether it's your vision, your gut, or your brain.
Well, what's so interesting is I literally am drawn to this supplement all throughout the day. And I do it wrong. I know I do it. I just take a sip of it and I don't even know how much I'm taking, but I love the taste. I take it and that's why my gut is probably feeling better. I take it with food. I take it without food. I just kind of take it whenever I feel like it. I have had 0 negative reaction or anything like that.
Good.
Like I said, it's one of my very favorite supplements that I have just started a couple months ago, and I will continue on. And Jess, we haven't even gotten into the exciting things that are coming up that you're working on and new supplements. So we might have to have you back.
I'd love to.
But I love what you're doing. If you ever need advice on young kids, I can tell you.
I might take you on that one.
My kids were all 4 and under at one point, but I can tell you this, having them close together, my 3 kids now are 18, 20, and 22, and they are best friends. They are amazing supporters. They're looking out for each other. And I told them from the very beginning, I said, there's no fighting. If you fight, you're not allowed to play with friends. I gave you 2 very best friends in this family. Yeah. Use them. And they have held to that and they look out for each other. It's amazing. So it's a lot of work. You are in the worst part, or I shouldn't say the worst. You're in the hardest part, but it is the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, I honestly have 3 very best friends in this house right now. So
amazing.
Anyway. Well, thank you, Jess. I love your supplements. You guys can find the PC in the liquid, but if you don't want the liquid, it's in the capsules as well. The sodium butyrate, the CalMag, and the vitamin B, all at Accelerated Health Products. Highly recommend them. I know a lot of you, most of you are suffering from gut issues, immune issues, and obviously we are all suffering from detox issues, even when you're doing everything right. So thanks for tuning in today. And if you need my help, you don't know where to start, you can reach out to me at sarabantahealth.com. Happy to put together a protocol for you, and join my free group coaching on Telegram. There's no downside. I'll answer your questions about the supplements we talked about today, how to detox properly, what's too much, what's too little. And you will also get answers and feedback from the other people in the group. There's more information on my website, sarabantahealth.com. Don't forget to follow me on social media at Accelerated Health Products. You can catch this podcast on over 100 platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. Just search Accelerated Health TV and Radio Show. And remember, I'm live every Monday and Tuesday. I post a bonus one on Thursdays, so make sure you subscribe. And you can use coupon WELCOME10 to get 10% off your first order if you want to try these supplements or any. Thanks again for joining us here, and have a great week.